Hello friends! I come back to you after a long time, and let me warn you straight away, I'm not coming with a banger. Instead, I bring with me a rather dry, some may even say boring subject. But for good reason. You see, lately I've been working on a new project exploring DirectX 11, wireframes, charms, custom shaders, that kind of stuff. While doing so, I had to admit that the just put everything out to console approach doesn't cut it. Partly because the sheer amount of data. When you hook some function which gets called very often, the console gets spammed. Which in extreme cases can be even bad for the game's performance. Partly because changing what's logged then requires rebuilding the DLL, injecting again gets tedious. Or maybe you wanna know why the game crashed, but on crash of course also the console closes, so bad luck reading what happened right before the disaster. If you face similar problems, you have come to the right place. I'll show you my solution right after the intro.
But you know what I like a lot more than materialistic things? Knowledge.
That's a hacking group we've been reporting on that's claimed responsibility for recent attacks.
The solution is, to nobody's surprise, writing the data into a file for later analysis. Let's take a look at the implementation, because we don't just want to copy-paste, right? First off, we have the log entry class. It contains the info about one individual entry. That is, number one, a timestamp. Quite obvious, here we save the time when the log entry was created. Number two, type. What exactly a type is up to you. I usually use 3 different types: info, warning and error. But you can use it for whatever you like. Number 3, the title. That could be, for instance, the name of the function you hooked, or maybe some general subject like hook or view matrix, really depends on the situation. And finally, the details. So maybe the error message, or maybe the key that was pressed when hooking direct input, or the value of a pointer, who knows, maybe some motivational message to keep your spirits up while digging through those log files. Log entry has 2 constructors. One takes all the info including a timestamp, the second one does not have a timestamp parameter, instead it uses the current time. I only use the second constructor. Then 2 functions. One for printing the entry to cout, so usually to console, and one for creating a string in CSV format, which will be used to save the entry into a file. Then we have the logger class itself. It stores the path to the log file, a stream for writing into the log file, and a vector containing all the log entries. The auth stream exists here in memory because it is more efficient to keep one open and reuse it all the time for writing instead of opening a new one every time. One private function which reads the content of the log file and stores it into the vector. This method is only called once from within the constructor. So the idea is, if there is already a log file, when starting the hack, then we read that data and subsequently append new data to it, both in the file and in memory. Next is the constructor. To be honest, that one is a bit messy. First, we check if there is already a log file by creating an if stream, because if you initialize an if stream and there is no file, then the stream can't open. If there is indeed no file yet, then we initialize our auth stream and add the first row to the file, which is the header containing the column names. If a file already exists, we read those entries and then again open the auth stream, which we keep open until the deconstructor gets called. Then we have 2 log functions. One takes a log entry object as parameter, the other one takes strings instead. The second one just creates the log entry object from the parameters and then calls the first variant. I only use the second variant myself. The log entry is added in memory to the vector and at the same time written to the file via the auth stream. Yes, we could also just add the entry in memory and then write it all at once, but what if the game crashes? Writing the entries right away is maybe less efficient, but more safe, I think. In the print function, we have a bit more going on. It is used to output the logged data to cout. Parameters are a boolean if we want to group the data or not. A value which defines by which column we want to group the data, title or type are possible. And finally a filter. If that one is passed, only titles or types equal to that filters are printed. If we want to print group data, that is, if we want to have a short list giving us type or title together with the amount of entries, then we use an unordered list to store the title or type as key together with the amount of entries as integer. Quite simple, just loop through the entries, filter them if the filter was passed, and increase the value of the current key. Note that if the key is not in the map yet, then we simply, by accessing it, it gets added. The integer counter is initialized as 0, so with ++ it is set to 1. Then print the data by looping through the unordered map. If we do not want to group the data, but instead print the individual entries, we loop through all the log entries. Again, we apply the optional filter parameter. If the filter is empty, or if type or title equal to filter, then we see out that entry. Okay, that was a full breakdown of the code. Now let's use it. Here I have created a new DLL project and I have added our usual basic setup. Would work with an external cheat just the same. First, let's include the logger like so. Now we initialize it. As parameter, we pass the path to the file we want to write the log entries to. Extension is CSV because that's the format in which we store our entries. Okay, now let's add some log entries for testing. First parameter, the type, so warning for example. Next, the title, maybe hook failed. And for details, let's pass the name of the hook and the error. So for instance, present hook failed, access violation. Let's add a bunch more entries. Something we might log in a direct input hook. Then some stuff we might get from a DirectX hook. And for good measure, some warnings and errors. Let's inject that DLL for tests and have a look at the created file. The file we created follows the CSV format, which means we can open it with something like Excel, for instance, for better analysis. In the earlier version, I used the JSON format, but to be honest, that's overkill. So we have all the info logged, which itself is already kinda nice, but how about displaying the data inside the hack? Let's have a look. As we know, the logger comes with a print function. If you call that function without any parameters, it outputs all the log entries. If we want a list of all the titles together with the amount of entries, we can get them by passing the group by parameter set to true. If we instead want to group by the type, we can do that as well. On top of that, we can filter the logs we want to display by title or type. So for instance, maybe we want to print all the error logs. Then we can do that like this. The logger has one more function, which is delete logs. Let's see those functions in action. Pressing numpad 1, we get a long list of all the logs. Pressing numpad 2, we see the different types of log entries together with the amount. Pressing 3, we get the same for the title. Pressing 4, we get all the log entries with type or title error. And finally, pressing 5, we delete the logs and the file. And that's already it for today. As always, thank you very much for watching, join the Discord, subscribe for more hacking videos. Until next time friends, talk to you soon.
Hey, our leader told me all about you. Name's Jackass. Nice to meet you. I hear you're planning to take out all the machines in the desert? Guess that means we need to get that entrance open.
Looks like it. So, Jackass, was it? What are you doing all the way out here?
Oh, that? Well... wouldn't want to have anyone getting tangled up in that, now would we? Don't go trying to be a hero, alright?